A 14-year-old girl was being murdered and she knew it, so she hit record. That clip sat on the internet for 7 years, millions of people analyzing every frame, every shadow, every voice. And that's not even the most disturbing part of what the internet did to these cases. True crime has always gripped the public, but the internet? The internet turned it into something else entirely, something louder, something faster, something that can solve a case or completely derail one. We're talking about the unsolved murders that broke the internet, sent millions of armchair detectives down rabbit holes, sparked wild conspiracy theories, and in at least one case actually helped catch a killer. These are the cases where the line between public obsession and justice got very, very blurry. Buckle up. Let's lay out the facts, folks. Cold, hard, documented facts. First up, John Benet Ramsey. On December 26, 1996, 6-year-old beauty pageant queen John Benet was found murdered in the basement of her Boulder, Colorado home. Her parents, John and Patricia Patsy Ramsey, found a ransom note that Christmas morning. The case consumed the country. Patsy Ramsey died of cancer in 2006. Early suspicion pointed hard at the parents, but here's the kicker: DNA evidence found at the scene was confirmed to belong to an unknown male, unrelated to the Ramsey family. As of today, no one has ever been charged. The investigation remains open. Nearly 30 years later, 30 years, then there's Alyssa Lamb. On January 31, 2013, a 21-year-old Canadian tourist checked into the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and was traveling alone. On February 19, 2013, her body was recovered from a large water cistern on the hotel's rooftop. After guests complained about the water pressure and taste. After guests complained about the water. Before her body was found, surveillance footage from the hotel elevator was released to the public. In it, Alyssa behaves erratically, pressing multiple buttons, hiding in the corner, peering into the hallway, appearing to talk to someone unseen. The coroner ruled her death an accidental drowning, attributed to her bipolar disorder and the medication she was on. The internet, naturally, lost its collective mind. And then there's the Delphi murders, perhaps the most stunning case of all. On February 13, 2017, 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty Libby German were murdered while hiking the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi, Indiana. What made the case explode online? Libby German had recorded the killer on her cell phone as they crossed an abandoned railway trestle. The audio clip released by police contained the phrase "down the hill." A partial image of Bridge Guy, a man in a hat and blue jeans, circulated everywhere. The internet went into a frenzy. For nearly 8 years it remained unsolved, until Richard Allen, 52, a local Delphi man, was convicted and sentenced to 130 years in prison in December 2024. One of the most viral cold cases in internet history, finally closed. Now, not everyone thinks the internet's obsession with these cases is a good thing, and some respected voices have real concerns. Critics of internet sleuthing point out that when millions of armchair detectives flood forums and social media with theories, they can destroy innocent people's lives. In the Delphi case alone, multiple innocent men were publicly named, doxxed, and had their lives upended by online communities convinced they'd cracked it, before Richard Allen was even arrested. The victims' families, too, have spoken about the toll of constant public scrutiny. They didn't ask for this. They asked for justice. Those are not always the same thing. In the John Benet Ramsey case, the media and internet obsession actively muddied the investigation. Decades of speculation and sensationalism made it nearly impossible to separate legitimate evidence from noise. The DNA of the unknown male has never been matched, but the public's fixation on the parents likely hampered early investigative directions. On Alyssa Lamb's case, mental health advocates pushed back hard against the internet frenzy. They argued that the viral speculation, which included claims of the supernatural, demonic possession, and government experiments, completely erased the reality of a young woman struggling with bipolar disorder who died a tragic, accidental death. The coroner's ruling was clear, but the conspiracy machine drowned it out. The viral true crime boom, sparked by shows like Serial and Making a Murderer, created millions of self-styled investigators who are, frankly, not investigators. Real detectives follow evidence chains. The internet follows vibes, Reddit threads, and TikTok edits. All right, folks, fasten your seatbelts. My associate Tinfoil has been in the basement, literal and metaphorical, for 3 days straight. Come on out, buddy. Tell the people what you've got.
3 days. 4 cold cases, 12 energy drinks. You want to start with John Bennett, or should I start with the one that involves the water?
Oh, start with John Bennett, please. I'm sure it's totally rational.
Ramsey family hired crisis PR the same week their daughter was murdered. They lawyered up before police even formally named them as suspects. The ransom note was 2.5 pages long, handwritten, and demanded exactly $118,000, which was the exact amount of John Ramsey's Christmas bonus that year. Exactly. Ask yourself, who outside that house knew that number?
Get a load of this. So you're saying the ransom note was an inside job?
I'm saying the details are very specific. The unknown male, DNA, could also be explained by contamination. The crime scene was compromised within hours. Evidence was moved. Investigators walked through without proper protocols. Who benefits from the case staying cold?
The parents who were never charged. Sure, let's go with that. What about Alyssa Lamb? I know you have thoughts. Unhinged thoughts, but thoughts.
The elevator footage. People focus on her behavior, the hiding, the button pressing, and call it demonic or paranormal. But look at the timestamps. The video released by police was slowed down. Portions appear edited. Now, why does law enforcement release a slowed, edited piece of evidence to the public?
To help find a missing person.
Or to muddy the waters on their OWN investigation timeline. The rooftop was supposed to be locked, accessible only by staff. Her body was in a sealed water tank. How does a 21-year-old woman, reportedly alone, get into a sealed tank on a locked roof?
I mean, the coroner said.
The coroner who works for the city that owns the hotel's operating license. Follow the liability, follow the money.
Okay. We're following the money and the water into the tank. Fantastic. What about the Delphi murders? Because I know you have feelings about the conviction of Richard Allen.
Richard Allen confessed, and then recanted. His attorneys argued his confession was given under extreme psychological duress after months in solitary confinement. Months in solitary, before trial. The defense raised serious questions about the integrity of the evidence chain and whether the Bridge Guy audio and image actually matched their client.
But he was convicted by a jury, 130 years.
Yet there are former law enforcement insiders and legal analysts who publicly questioned whether the rush to close a case that had embarrassed Indiana State Police for 7 years led to a compromised prosecution. The internet community that spent years on this case, many of them aren't convinced. Some have named other suspects with their own evidence trails.
Oh, it gets better. You were going to tell me something about the Cecil Hotel itself, weren't you?
Cecil Hotel. Let me paint a picture. Serial killer Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, lived there in the 1980s. Serial killer Jack Unterweger also stayed there while murdering women in Los Angeles. The hotel has a documented history of deaths, suicides, and criminal activity spanning decades. And then, a tuberculosis test kit marketed to detect TB in developing nations was named Lamelissa, named for the same scientific method, ELISA, and it became news right as her body was found. The internet treated this like a sign, a code.
A tuberculosis test kit. You cannot be serious.
Coincidence is a word people use when they don't want to look further.
And on that completely unhinged note, let's move on before I lose my remaining grip on reality. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting, folks. Because the mainstream view and the conspiracy world actually agree on more than you'd think. Both agree that the John Bennett Ramsey case was botched, the crime scene was compromised, evidence was mishandled, and the investigation was sloppy from day one. Where they diverge, the mainstream says the unknown male DNA is the key unsolved thread. Conspiracy circles say the parents' behavior is still too suspicious to dismiss. Both agree the Alyssa Lamb elevator footage is genuinely strange and raises real questions. Where they diverge, mainstream forensics and the coroner attributed her death to accidental drowning tied to her mental illness. The internet insists there are too many unanswered access questions about a locked rooftop and sealed tank. In the Delphi murders, both mainstream reporting and online communities acknowledge that Richard Allen's defense raised legitimate procedural concerns about the trial. The jury convicted. The internet remains divided. The biggest divergence of all. The mainstream sees internet true crime communities as a potential tool, tip lines, image recognition, public pressure. Critics see those same communities as a mob that destroys innocent lives, traumatizes victims' families, and replaces evidence with emotion. Both sides have receipts. All right, here's what the evidence actually tells us, no spin attached. The internet's obsession with unsolved murder cases is a double-edged sword, and both edges are sharp. On one hand, public pressure and online attention genuinely kept cases like the Delphi murders in the national spotlight for years, ultimately contributing to the social pressure that pushed for answers. A killer was convicted and sentenced to 130 years. That matters. On the other hand, the John Benet Ramsey case shows what happens when media and internet hysteria overwhelm a real investigation. Innocent people get destroyed. Evidence gets lost in noise. Nearly 30 years later, a killer is still out there, and the unknown male DNA has never been matched. Alyssa Lamb's case is perhaps the most sobering lesson. A young woman with a documented mental health condition died a tragic accidental death, and the internet turned her final moments into viral entertainment, supernatural clickbait, and conspiracy fodder, while her real story, a human being who deserved compassion, got buried under millions of YouTube views. The conspiracy theories. Some raise genuinely uncomfortable questions about evidence handling and institutional accountability, but uncomfortable questions are not the same as answers. And in every one of these cases, the loudest voices online have consistently been the least reliable. The truth, as always, is somewhere in the evidence, not in the comment section. That's the unsolved murder file, officially closed on some, unofficially wide open on all of them. Drop your theory in the comments. Hit subscribe if you want the next classified briefing, and remember, the truth doesn't care if you believe it.